Okarun is a miserable virgin nerd who got bullied daily and couldn't get chicks even if his life depended on it. However, after a baddie randomly decides to save him from bullies one day, he becomes obsessed with clapping her but ends up in a never-ending series of near-death experiences after his nuts get stolen by a ghost. But before this, Momo is in emotional shambles after yet another breakup, this time with a toxic guy who only wanted her kitty or her cash.
All voters are the same.
Minutes later in class, her friends finally say what everyone's been thinking. They're sick of the same tragic rerun. She'd fall for a total douchebag if he even vaguely resembled her idol, Ken Takakura. And they're done reminding her that dudes like that don't exist anymore, especially not in high school. As she mopes through the hallway, dragging what's left of her self-esteem, she spots a boy getting bullied and pretends to care about the aura-draining nerd just to shut it down. The bullies walk off, but the nerd she rescued totally misreads the moment and thinks she's actually into what he's reading.
I'm gonna tell him.
Don't you dare.
Which, by the way, is about aliens. He starts tailing her like a lost puppy. Eventually, she snaps, but then apologizes and blurts out that she believes in ghosts, hoping it'll cheer him up. The stupid nerd isn't impressed, and somehow they end up in a full-blown argument about which is real, ghosts or aliens. It ends in a bet and a dare to visit actual haunted and alien-infested places. Momo ends up visiting an abandoned hospital, known for being pretty much a hangout area for aliens. Meanwhile, the king of nerds, who she nicknames Occult Kun, visits an abandoned tunnel, which people say is a hot spot for ghosts. You'd think they'd both turn back once they realize how creepy things are getting, but their dust-filled brains stop them from using common sense. While walking through the hospital, Momo admits to him that she actually started believing in ghosts because her grandma is a medium. When she was little, her parents died and her grandma took her in, making her do a weird ritual before going to school. All the kids made fun of her, including her crush, and that made her angry at her grandma. But she later realized that she was just upset at the fact that people laughed at her grandma because she loved her so much. Occult Kun doesn't have any emotional story like that though, or at least he isn't ready to share at the moment, so they keep chatting about random stuff until he sees a ghost that's weirdly interested in his fleshy magic wand. He immediately makes a run for it, completely forgetting Momo's warning not to, because legend says if you let Turbo Granny outrun you, she'll put a curse on you. Well, too late, because she does outrun him and grabs his Frank and beans.
Is it the Frank or the beans?
I don't know. It looks like I think it's a little bit of both.
Break some veins! Break some veins!
Meanwhile, Momo meets her own nightmare as some creepy aliens known as Seropians suddenly strip and abduct her to use her for reproductive research. After explaining how they intend to replicate her kitty by drilling it with an android magnum.
What the hell is even that?
And yep, it's as horrifying as it sounds. They use hypnosis to stimulate freaky thoughts to get her in the mood. However, just as she begins to believe she's done for, a creature literally crawls out of her phone and attacks them. It's Occult Kun, but he's under the ghost's spell and control. The aliens immediately switch to their true form, but they're no match for the ghost currently possessing Occult Kun. After minutes of fighting, Granny Nut Gobbler takes over Occult Kun's mind, but the aliens also start to overpower her. Right then, Momo suddenly remembers something her grandma once said about power she never even knew was in her. Her newly awakened psychic abilities save her from the aliens and Occult Kun from the ghost, so they escape the UFO they apparently have been in all this while. The ghost then tells her that he isn't free though, and if they want his freedom, they should come meet her at the tunnel. They just barely survived the encounter, and now both believe in ghosts and aliens after learning the hard way. However, Momo has to keep her abilities on because of his curse, which means they have to find a way to beat the ghost. Occult Kun refuses to get her further involved and offers her his clothes, planning to face the ghost alone, but she refuses this and returns his clothes, insisting that she follows him. However, he still won't let her waltz around in her underwear, even if his nuts are missing. This catches her off guard, because that happens to be one of her favorite lines from her idol. Trying to play it off, she finally asks for his actual name, so he casually says his real name is Ken Takakura, and her mind immediately implodes.
A match made in heaven, quite.
The fact that his name is truly Ken Takakura is messing with Momo's head a little too much, so she makes him promise never to use his real name, giving him the nickname Okarun instead. Soon after this, the sun rises, and Momo doesn't think the ghost is a morning person, so she suggests they head to her place instead. Minutes later, they get to her place, and Okarun suddenly becomes a low-budget ghost rider once he tries to step into her yard, so she tosses him in a river to chill. Turns out her granny had put a protective barrier that she completely forgot existed. She then removes the talisman, letting him into the yard without turning into roasted steak. Luckily, her grandma isn't around, so they head straight to her room. She has to change, but also needs to concentrate to keep his curse in check, leaving them both in an awkward and extremely freaky situation. She then hands him some clothes and goes on to ask what it feels like not having a sausage anymore, but that's not an experience he's willing to share. After confirming that it's really no longer there, they start arguing about whose fault it is, and Okarun admits that he didn't want to miss a chance to have a friend, which was why he kept desperately bugging her in the first place. She then admits that she actually likes talking with him before a strange doorbell that Momo hasn't heard before interrupts them. Her grandma had told her before that the house had 2 doorbells, one for normal humans and the other for anything that's clearly not a person. Just as she realizes that she had forgotten to replace the talisman that kept spirits, an evil spirit casually strolls into the yard. She immediately tries to put it back, but the spirit blocks off the entire yard with a huge wall to trap them. Putting the talisman back with Okarun still inside would mean leaving him to become Demon Barbecue, so she decides to ditch that idea. As if the situation isn't bad enough, the spirit starts creating a black fog to poison them. They then take to their heels, and Okarun deduces that it's actually an alien, not an evil spirit, as it is also interested in his sausage. Yes, again, turns out the people that can see psychic phenomena can also see UFOs. As Momo loses concentration and makes our boy partially transform, he comes up with an idea. If she lets the curse transform his body and not his mind, he can control it and actually have a shot at fighting the overgrown Halloween costume. Moments later, the plan works, and our boy turns into a cool-looking ghost hybrid monster, with an I just want to unalive myself personality that's running Momo mental. Anyway, he is extremely powerful now, moving with incredible speed and strength like he got possessed by Sukuna. However, his body is still human and can't keep up, so it breaks down, leaving Momo no choice but to transform him back to normal. Just then, she notices that it always takes a sumo pose, and with that logic, making its hands touch the ground should murk it, or at least she hopes it will. Using the last of his strength, Okarun retransforms and tries to push it to the ground while Momo tries to trip it over with her ability. This almost works, but it suddenly develops extra limbs that keep it from touching the ground.
Nice try, okay? Nice try.
It then grabs Momo and pounds her into the wall over and over, using her as a punching bag, but she uses this to her advantage. When it makes a hole deep enough into the wall by punching her, she pulls Okarun to her and the talisman, and since the hole is technically beyond the compound, the talisman does its job and keeps Okarun safe from becoming KFC's combo lunch platter, while the alien burns to dust as she expected. With the transformation giving our boy a cool new hairstyle as a bonus, he tries to celebrate, but the excessive use of energy causes Momo to feel lightheaded, so she faints, leaving Okarun's curse to run wild. While filming a trashy TV show that same day, Seiko somehow manages to fail to predict facts about a famous idol. Doesn't matter though, because the entire show is hot crap anyway. On her way home, she suddenly tells the driver to stop her halfway, if he values his pitiful life, because she just sensed an evil spirit coming from her home, and boy, did she hit the nail straight on the head. Okarun has been completely taken over by the Turbo Granny and is about to attack a helpless Momo, when a Nobara-style attack from Seiko sends him flying. It immediately tries attacking from her blind spot, but Seiko already predicted the move and easily counters. She then draws a circle with a nail around the ghost, and another around herself, trapping it inside a barrier and surrounding herself with one to stop it from attacking her. But since Turbo Granny is only using our boy's body to manifest her powers, killing it would basically erase him. Seiko really doesn't seem to care though, because she casually draws another circle around the ghost, now including the nail, thereby converting that space into a barrier and basically preparing our boy for a one-way trip to his ancestors. Minutes later, Momo wakes up in her room and rushes downstairs to meet her hot grandma casually watching her favorite sitcom. She tries to explain the situation, but Seiko already knows that she went to a haunted place, or at least her friend did. She is obviously more interested in her show, so she casually confesses that she killed the spirit, but it shouldn't be a problem since her granddaughter doesn't believe in ghosts anyway. Momo, sensing the harsh sarcasm in her voice, gives a sincere apology for doubting her and begs her to tell her where she kept her possessed friend. Granny Ghostbuster then tells her to go to the main shrine, so she bolts for it, swearing never to forgive her if she hurt her friend. The fact that he was just an innocent friendless nerd until she dared him to go to the shrine in the first place replays in her mind as she fears that he might be a goner because of her. Thankfully though, she finds our boy casually munching on rice balls and gets embarrassed because she almost bawled her eyes out at the thought of him kicking the bucket. The next moment, Granny Ghostbuster comes out of nowhere and jump scares her before explaining how he has to remain in that shrine to keep the curse in check. She then teases her about liking him, but Momo doesn't hesitate to disagree. She explains the entire situation to her grandma, including Okarun's missing nuts and her new psychic powers, so Seiko admits that she had actually tried to visit the tunnel but couldn't because of the excessive spiritual energy, and the fact that Turbo Granny had fused with the ghost that was bound to that tunnel. She discourages Momo and tells her to give up and leave Okarun to his fate, but Momo refuses and insists on helping him, just like her idol Ken Takakura would. Sensing that she's dead set on helping, Seiko decides to help her with a plan instead. The plan is to lure the ghost out of the tunnel and the city it's bound to by challenging her to a friendly game of death tag. Seiko won't be able to actually help much, since her barrier abilities only work in her territory. Okarun would just have to train to get stronger at handling the curse without completely breaking down, and Momo would have to work on her psychic powers. To help with this, Seiko offers to become their personal trainer and transform them from the pathetic hot whimpering pile of existential dread they currently are into something vaguely resembling a ghost hunter. Later, Momo and Okarun have a little genuine moment where they promise to be there for each other in their own messed up little way. Meanwhile, on the news, it turns out that Seiko's predictions about the popular idol were actually dead on. The next morning, a whole new problem arises. Okarun needs to use the men's room, but Momo needs to keep an eye on him at all times to keep his curse in check, which means he's going to have to take a dump in front of her, a situation neither of them prepared for. She explains to her grandma how she has to see auras in order to grab or contain it since her powers are a lot more powerful than when she first awakened them. But for some reason, they've been reduced to her only being able to move stuff a short distance. Seiko then suggests that she try feeling it instead, but that doesn't work. Right then, Okarun realizes that he can't hold it in any longer and ends up having to do his business in front of Momo.
Oh geez, that's embarrassing.
Needless to say, this experience definitely provides the motivation needed to beat the hell out of this Turbo Granny. Speaking of the ghost, it suddenly visits Momo and informs her that she has to come face her tonight, which means their whole training plan just got thrown out the window. With no other choice, Seiko sends them both off to fight Turbo Granny in traditional Japanese clothing that's supposed to be ghost-proof. Underneath all her sarcasm, she wishes her beloved granddaughter Momo luck and prays for her safe return. As embarrassing as it is to ride a public train in traditional Japanese armor, Momo remembers the worried look on Seiko's face and swears to take the ghost down. Minutes later, they arrive at the tunnel and find that it's as spooky as it was the day Okarun lost his literal manhood.
I feel bad for him now.
F him.
After arguing over who will go in first, Momo remembers how they beat that giant alien and deludes herself into thinking there's no way it would be any bigger than what they've already faced before. Right then, she regrets ever thinking they stood a chance because Turbo Granny turns out to be a colossal monstrosity that covers the whole entrance to trap them. Momo immediately tries to attack by throwing metal bats at her, but she munches on them like snacks in an instant. Momo then releases Okarun's curse and lets him transform into his monster forms, which gives them a small boost in confidence. However, this doesn't last long because the curse immediately disappears as soon as his sausage returns. Just as they're about to kiss their young dumb lives goodbye, Momo remembers what Granny Ghostbuster advised her about getting it to play tag and challenges it to a game. Just as Seiko predicted, it immediately succumbs to this and accepts the challenge, giving them a chance to take another breath. Momo's challenge is to catch them both after giving them a 10-minute head start, and that's very fine by Turbo Granny. She starts counting, so they dash back the way they came, with Momo wishing that she could have gotten them more time to get the hell out of there. Unfortunately, Turbo Granny has a weird way of counting and reaches her 10-minute delay time in a matter of seconds. She then traps Momo and starts counting for Okarun, with the same counting style. Once again, she's done in a matter of seconds, but our boy refuses to go down without a fight, especially not after his promise to Momo. He grabs on as tight as he can and bites her melons.
That's enough internet for me today. I am going to wash myself with holy water to get rid of all the stupidity I saw today.
Which is just wild, but at least it does the job. His clothes, which were blessed by a spiritual medium, aka a Granny Ghostbuster, weakens her, so she has no other choice than to possess him again in order to get rid of the clothes. Momo then uses this chance to trap her inside Okarun's body. She's finally able to feel auras instead of just seeing them, so she does this with ease. In a matter of seconds, they gain the upper hand against Turbo Granny, but the fight isn't over because they have another spirit to deal with. The one bound to this area who now wants its Turbo Granny back. Apparently, dead spirits sometimes turn into freshwater crabs so that they can cross the river to the underworld. Upon seeing this, Okarun activates Demon Boy mode to get them both out of the way in time and ends up jumping out into the city. He tries to use his legs like helicopters, but gives up after 5 seconds like the wuss he is, so they crash land, but are still okay. However, he has already used half of his strength and can only use his full speed one more time. Like this isn't enough. The little time they manage to buy quickly expires as the crab immediately starts chasing after them. Now out in the city, they begin to meet ignorant pedestrians that have absolutely no idea what's going on. As they keep running, Okarun starts to lose steam quickly and realizes that his full speed won't be enough to get them out of the city in time. Momo notices this, but decides that there's no way she is letting herself become crab chowder tonight, so she comes up with an idea and makes them take a detour to a resort for a quick relaxation break. With Mr. Crab's psychotic ghosts still on their trail, other normal folks, who can only see the destruction and not the actual crab, think they're being bombed or something. They then lead the crab to a hot spring at the resort, which some might think is a bad idea since crabs basically thrive in water. But because water from a hot spring is boiling hot, the muscles of the crab tense up, rendering it incapacitated. Soon, they start to contemplate ending the day with seafood. Now that that's taken care of, all they need is to get out of the city to seal their victory. However, while on their way, they notice that the streets are unusually quiet and begin to wonder where all the people went. They soon get their answer when a mob of possessed humans starts chasing them. Turns out that cunning old hag spirit had called for backup from the cemetery in the city. To make matters worse, the not-so-cooked crab re-enters the game of death tag, and now everything is chasing them, so Momo tells Okarun to use his last strength to go full speed. He reminds her that it won't get them out of the city in time, but at this point, there's no option. He immediately fires off, and with the help of her psychic abilities, they navigate the horde of possessed humans and avoid the giant crab, all while staying en route. She then spots a moving train, and that gives her an idea, but he detransforms in midair. After using the very last drop of strength to retransform so they can land, his body completely reaches its limits, which means no more Demon Boy for a while. It's then that Momo realizes she let go of the old hag for a second too long. She quickly attacks them and knocks weak Okarun unconscious before fusing with the spirit crab once more and becoming gigantic. Just when it starts looking bad, well, really bad because it's been bad from the very beginning.
How bad? Bad.
Momo decides to explain a master plan she had all along. Using her psychic abilities, she grabs onto the moving train with Okarun, and they both board a free pass out of the city with an angry spirit chasing after them. Turbo Granny then starts running at 100 miles an hour to catch up, but the train which moves at 150 keeps them safe. Unfortunately, she still catches up to the train when it brakes for turns. But that is also a part of Momo's master plan, as she holds her down with her ability, trapping her in a train heading straight outside of the city, where Granny Ghostbuster is patiently waiting to beat the hell out of her with a barrier. As they cross the border, for an instant, Momo sees the souls of young girls her age disappear into nothing. Once they stop, Seiko explains to her that the tunnel was actually the burial ground for so many young girls who were unalived. She had wanted to handle it more softly, but sometimes some spirits have to be forced to move on. Turbo Granny had always shown up near the spirits of unalived girls for some reason, maybe trying to console them. Whatever the case, the dead should never harm the living and vice versa, which is why stomping in on their territory because of a stupid dare wasn't the brightest idea. After all that, they return home to have dinner and actually decide to have seafood, because Momo and Seiko are both sick psychos. Okarun, however, refuses to eat for obvious reasons, but Seiko suddenly demands visual proof that he got his banana back and acts like she is doing it for his safety.
Get naked, you strange whore!
At the end, Momo assures him that she was just joking and tries to cheer him up, but he finds that hard to believe. As he prepares to leave, he gets upset because of the fact that he might never have a reason to talk to her again, but he should have known that once you've gone through hell and back with someone, that experience basically binds you to that person for life.
Why don't you explain what that is to so they can understand?
Yeah,
just explain what that is.
Explain what you think that is.
Okay.
Just explain that.
The next day at school, Okarun ends up with more anxiety than a preschooler with stage fright in a talent show. He had spent all morning rehearsing the Duke Dennis pickup lines he watched the previous night just to steal a place in Momo's heart.
Look at this dude.
But as he sees her waiting for him at the doorway, his loser personality kicks in, and he immediately assumes she must be waiting for someone else. He then proceeds to totally ignore her, but there's not a chance in hell Momo is letting that just slide. She immediately runs up to him and starts yapping, which is a pleasant surprise for the nerd final boss, who initially thought she hated his guts. Momo definitely can't run out of things to say, so as she keeps talking about aliens and a bunch of random stuff, Okarun nervously tries to keep up. Once they reach their different classes, they once again enter their separate worlds, but it's different now. Okarun can actually bear all the bullying and terrible treatment from his classmates because now he has a baddie to look forward to talking to. Meanwhile, Momo totally zones out and ignores her friends as she thinks about their experiences together, causing her friends to assume that she might have gone back to her toxic ex. The one thing that's common between the both of them is the fact that they both desperately want to talk to each other about the supernatural, and suddenly it feels like time is moving extremely slow today. When it's finally lunch break, they both go out to look for each other, but keep missing each other, like two lovers in a Bollywood movie.
I was about to Bollywood this bitch.
One heads to the cafeteria, while the other ends up at the store still desperately trying to find each other. They both soon give up and sit outside the school, still oblivious to the fact that they're painfully near each other.
I'm gonna kill myself!
Wow.
I'm going to kill myself, and it's your fault!
Momo then begins to wonder if she was a bit too pushy earlier when she was blabbing about aliens while they walked to their classes, and Okarun's loser personality kicks back in, as he once again feels like he doesn't deserve to be her friend. This causes them both to feel pretty awful about themselves, and as they both get up to leave, they bump into each other, with faces smooching the other like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. As their cheesy goose chase finally comes to an end, another web of drama unfolds as Momo's friends, who had seen them immediately assume that they were exchanging mouth juices. In a bid to both defend themselves, they start bickering and completely reject each other, even though their chemistry is so thick you could touch it.
You ain't fooling nobody.
After they separate to keep up the act, Okarun goes to spend some alone time in the men's room and begins to reflect on the things he said. The next moment, he realizes something terrible that he really has to tell Momo about. Momo, on the other hand, who is currently being ganged up on by her friends who are teasing her about being in love with a nerd, is in no mood to speak with him. She actually goes a little overboard just to maintain her baddie reputation and harshly tells him off, sending the biggest idiot on this planet to whatever hole he crawled out of. After school, Okarun accidentally bumps into this other chick, who is as basic and shallow as they come. As she starts playing nice girl with him and pretends to actually be talking with him all for attention, Okarun, who's a helpless virgin, immediately falls for it as just a touch from the hottie melts the brain cells he has left. Momo, who's already feeling down about the way she reacted to Okarun before, immediately feels her heart sink when she sees the chick flirting with him. It gets a lot worse when she overhears her bad-mouthing him literally moments after flirting with him. As a sweet comeback, she uses her ability to drop a metal washtub on her head and ends up knocking her out. Then she rushes over to Okarun asking him to walk her home, and starts flirting loudly to make sure she could hear, while giving the devilish girl a deadly stink eye. On their way home, Momo apologizes for her rudeness earlier. Okarun, although glad that they are friends again, has more important news to share, so that genuine moment is cut short. His banana is back, but his balls didn't make the trip back home. Upon hearing this, Momo cracks up and struggles to stop herself from laughing. Granny Ghostbuster on the hand had already suspected this, which is why she was interested in seeing it during that crab dinner. She then checks him out and discovers that there's really something hiding inside him, so she instructs him to put his feet in water while she beats the demon out of him using a sacred fan of some sort. Then, Momo positions a beckoning cat doll with a talisman to catch whatever is hiding. Once she beats him, a new aura shows within Okarun, so Momo uses her ability to pull it out until it enters the doll. The next moment, the doll takes off running, so they all start chasing after it, and although it manages to escape for a brief moment, Momo eventually uses her abilities to track it and traps it in the closet. Turns out the squirming possessed doll is actually Turbo Granny. Unfortunately, she's far from done with this story, and she's nowhere near the afterlife where they thought they sent her. Turns out when Seiko activated her barrier, she had rescued her spiritual energy and sneaked into the cracks, hiding in Okarun's body until she was able to recover her strength and straight up unalive all of them. Big talk for a squirming doll cat about the size of a volleyball. But she does have an ace up her old sleeves, because if she goes, any hope of our boy getting his nuts back goes with her. She then tries to blackmail him into unaliving Momo and Seiko for her, but of course Okarun refuses. Just then, he suddenly transforms, which shouldn't be possible since Turbo Granny is no longer inside him. Seiko then explains that her magic fan only beat the spirit's consciousness out of him, while her power and everything else remained in his body. After coming to terms with the fact Okarun can now transform on his own, and detransform without Momo's help, they decide to focus on getting his baby makers back. Momo understands that deep down, the evil spirit had always cared for unalived girls, so she strikes a deal with her and promises to return her power once she returns our boy's jewels. However, things suddenly take a weird turn because Turbo Granny sort of has no idea where the nuts are. It turns out that this idiot's balls are safely covered in shiny gold spirit essence, but they're too small to be found anywhere in the big city. Plus, it's full of powerful spiritual life force, which means there's a big chance someone else has already snatched them. Turbo Granny immediately tries to make it look like she isn't responsible for the loss of his two greatest assets, but a 5-minute reasonable beating from Momo and Okarun returns her back to her senses. After hours of scouring the city for his nuts, they give up searching and return to Momo's home, where Seiko goes to gather some intel. She however warns Okarun to remember that the power he now has isn't his own, and to be careful while using it. The next day at school, one of Okarun's classmates tries to get him to set him up with Momo. It's then that Okarun realizes he never noticed that Momo is actually a pretty cute 10 out of 10 baddie, but he'd rather focus on their friendship instead. At this point, I don't think this idiot will ever get laid. What forcefully drags him out of his dreamy thoughts is the rumor that Momo goes around getting down with all the boys in the school. This pisses him off so much that he switches to Demon Boy and starts demanding to know who started the rumor and scaring the crap out of the brat who said it. He then transforms back to his nerdy self and walks quietly to his seat, trying desperately to calm down. Turbo Granny, who had sneaked in with him in his backpack, suddenly pops out of nowhere and freaks him the hell out, so he races out of the class with his bag to confront her. Turns out, Seiko had given her permission to leave since it's not like she could harm anybody in this form anyway, so he decides to let it slide. She then tries to get Okarun to let her in his body again, with the promise to help him control the power that went berserk just now, and to leave him alone once she gets her power back. Thankfully, the fact that he is a miserable loner has not fully damaged his brain, so he rejects the offer. Just then, Momo finds him, so he tries to explain the situation, but the fact that he's noticing how hot she is makes him stutter and back out. He can't even face her, and she has no idea what's going on. She soon starts chasing him, and the possessed cat doll is left unattended. Back in her class a couple minutes later, Momo complains to her friends about how Okuran suddenly started avoiding her, so they tell her about how he got pissed at a dude for trash talking her and the nasty rumors that are spreading around. Somewhere else in the school, that shallow chick that got her head bashed by Momo is busy glazing herself, while boys gawk over her as she walks past them. She always turns and gives a fake smile, giving them a little hope that they have a shot with her, when they have a better shot at seeing flying pigs. She got mad about the metal washbowl Momo used to fracture her skull and started the nasty rumor out of spite, but she thinks not many people are talking about it, so she's even more upset. For some reason, she believes that Momo is a demon because she could clearly see her psychic abilities in the shape of arms following her around. This sick narcissist of a girl believes she's been chosen because of something as stupid and basic as her beauty. And also because a golden ball had randomly found her. A golden ball that looks an awfully lot like one of the jewels our protagonists are looking for. Apparently, she was around the train station when the battle between Turbo Granny and our boy was going down, and the jewel dropped and landed on her. That was also when she started being able to see the supernatural, and now she takes the jewel with her everywhere. Shortly after this, her friend gets back with everything she requested, including a Bible and a cross, for some reason. She is either gearing up for an exorcism or is into some very weird foreplay. Either way, she has everything she needs for a plan she's cooking up that already looks very dumb. Her friends are just rolling along with it, even if they're starting to fear that she's completely lost it. She then spots a woman in a red dress on the field, but no one else can see it, so she starts acting super weird, but maintains composure anytime a boy walks by. To avoid looking suspicious, she communicates in sign language to start her plan after school, and our sneaky cat doll watches all this from the shadows. At lunch, Okuran is still being weird and avoiding eye contact with Momo, so Turbo Granny explains how she's been snooping around the school looking for the jewels. It's possible a human took them, but that would mean the psychic ability in the human would be activated, and they'd be able to see spirits, which also means spirits can see them, and they'd be basically cooked. Turbo Granny had seen the woman in the red dress on the field, but she didn't really think much of it despite seeing that Era, our delusional narcissist girl, was prepping herself for a supernatural whooping. After school, Era suddenly asks for a private chat with Momo. She refuses at first, but later gives in after recognizing her as the girl she dropped the washtub on, but only because she wants to squash any drama now before it develops into something else. Okuran is left to continue the search without her, but Turbo Granny informs him that Era is the girl she saw looking at the woman in red, who is actually an evil spirit. Era then leads Momo to an abandoned warehouse, where she's jumped by Era's friends, before Era proceeds to vanquish her with the cross, which was her low IQ idea all along. Momo uses her abilities to take care of Era's friends, and when she sees that the cross isn't working, she unleashes her secret weapon, our boy's nuts. Momo immediately recognizes the jewel and tries to explain to a dense Era, but she won't listen and claims it's some kind of weapon bestowed upon her. In the midst of the struggle, Okuran shows up, so Momo tries explaining to him that the dumb chick currently tying her down is the ghost in red Turbo Granny had seen, but that's not true. In fact, Era is the hunted in this scenario, not the hunter. In the blink of an eye, the ghost swoops in and grabs Era, claiming to be her long-lost mom, and shows a short flashback of when she was little to back up the lies. Our boy then goes demon mode and tries to save her with his flash-level speed, but the spirit is too strong, and he ends up being her lunch. Momo tries to help, but her hands are still tied, so she can't use her full abilities, giving the spirit enough leeway to quickly overwhelm her. The spirit then goes on and on about how she's waited so long for her precious Era to see her. But Era remains confused as to why a monster is calling herself her mother. Apparently, she had called her mom when she was little, and that put a twisted sense of motherhood in the spirit's head. Thankfully, Momo re-enters the battle, and Turbo Granny, who had just narrowly escaped being gobbled up together with Akurun, tells them that she's actually an acrobatic silky spirit. She gets info from the internet via the phone she stole from Momo's friends. But that's not the major issue here. Turbo Granny might also be an evil spirit, but she doesn't have the time to be memorizing info on other evil spirits. Meanwhile, Era is still speaking nonsense about how she was chosen to defeat evil monsters like the one holding her. This pisses the evil spirit off, so she swallows her in a single gulp. As she then blames Momo for all of this and goes on to face her, Momo asks that Turbo Granny release her arms so she can stand a chance, but she refuses, and that leads to the spirit dealing serious damage. She then tries to force Momo to apologize and call her mommy as well, but she refuses, so she swallows her as well. When Turbo Granny demands that she vomit them all out, she refuses, but all of a sudden, the ghost catches on fire. Turns out that when she ate Momo, she also ate some of her hair, and that cross Era was holding was actually a lighter, which a smart girl like Momo would have figured to use to burn the hair from the inside out. The beckoning cat doll that Turbo Granny possessed ends up being a sign of good luck, as nothing else can explain this unbelievable coincidence. Left with no other option, she pulls her hair out, along with Momo and the others, so they can start taking this fight seriously. So don't be a dweeb. Subscribe now or Turbo Granny might steal your nuts. Now upon seeing this, acrobatic Silky totally loses it and uses her burnt hair to throw a tantrum. Momo and Akurun immediately make a run for it, but since he can't use his full speed due to the twist and turn layout of the abandoned shed, she catches Momo. However, as Akurun keeps holding on to her precious Era, she continues chasing them. He evades her attacks, but she lands a hard kick that sends him flying like the Powerpuff Girls. Finally, nothing is in the way between her and her precious Era. She doesn't really mind not being called mother as well, as long as she gets to devour her like KFC chicken. This way they can be together forever. Except now she can't move. Turns out all that running around made her hair get tangled in all sorts of places. Momo's quick thinking saves them once again, but Acrobat Silky isn't going down without a fight, and Momo has to hold her down while she tells Akurun to use his abilities to take her down. Unfortunately, they discover that he can't use his powers for an attack because until now he had only used his power to run and evade attacks and had never actually attacked anyone.
What?
With Momo slowly losing her grip, he tries to think of something quick, because Acrobatic Silky is also tearing her own hair just to attack again. With no other choice, he uses his full speed to body slam her out of the building. Just then, Turbo Granny finally comes out of hiding in his backpack and is disappointed at how he's using her power, even though it got the job done. She then heads over to search Era and finds one of Akurun's jewels. Just as they think the worst is over, they realize that Era isn't alive anymore. They immediately rush to check her pulse and heartbeat, but there's nothing there. Turns out that once a normal human gets eaten by a spirit, then it's basically game over for them. Our little power couple only got spared because they weren't normal humans. In a desperate attempt to save her, Momo tries using her psychic hands to give her heart a manual jumpstart while Akurun does CPR. Turbo Granny then tries to tell them it's no use, but they keep going anyway. Just then the half-dead spirit returns, staggering back and longing for her Era. They immediately raise their guard, but she's no longer interested in fighting. Instead, she volunteers her aura to be used as some sort of battery to restart Era's life. Momo naturally doesn't trust her at first, but after she breaks her own jaw to prove she's done munching on humans, she has no choice but to let her do her thing, although she doesn't let her guard down, and neither does Akurun. Acrobat Silky then tells her to use her powers to create a link between her aura and Era's, which she obeys to the letter. In a flashback, we see a poor woman going home from work where she got down with dudes to get paid. On her way, she spots a beautiful dress for kids and eventually goes home to meet her young and lively daughter, who's very happy to see her. She lives a very low-class but soft life. She works multiple jobs during the day, teaches her daughter how to dance like her, and shares warm meals with her. She also does freaky workout sessions with men for money, and uses it to take care of her daughter, who she loves very much. She soon saves enough money to buy that dress she saw the other day for her daughter, and they share many beautiful memories. The innocent little girl doesn't see her mother's pain only because she hides it so well. It's all smiles and rainbows until it crashes. Debt collectors come to destroy her home, push her into broken glass, and take her precious daughter. She tries to stop them amidst the bleeding, but they kick her down in the eyes, blinding her. Once she regains consciousness, her daughter is nowhere to be found, and she immediately loses it and takes to the streets, panicking in search of her daughter, and later collapses on the bare street grounds. And thus, a terrible story unfolds, and all her spirit can do is dance aimlessly in the land of the dead. Just then a little girl mistakes her for her mother. Little Era's real mom had actually passed, and she was having a hard time dealing with it as well. That was when the big misunderstanding happened. The spirit had lost her memory, and somehow the trauma had made her think Era was her lost daughter, just because of that one identity mistake, and thus Acrobat Silky was born. Minutes later, Era wakes up in tears, and Momo immediately breaks down too. So Okarun thinks Acrobat Silky hurt her, but she didn't. She had just witnessed the entire story, and it snapped a chord in her already fragile heart. Acrobat Silky then begins to apologize to Era for hurting her and literally starts to break into pieces, because she had given up her aura. It's the ultimate game over for her, for real this time. And because of how much regret she still has, she's not going to cross peacefully like the other spirits. Instead, she'll go to the void, where she'll basically be erased completely, just like your browser history after a couple hours on the hub. In her last moments, Acrobat Silky begins to regret how she couldn't take care of her real daughter, buy her real dresses, or just generally be a good mom. Just then Era instinctively runs to her and hugs her, saying the exact words she would have wanted to hear from her real daughter. Era desperately wishes for a safe passing to the other side, for both her and her daughter, as she vanishes into nothing. The next morning, they all enjoy a nice breakfast at Momo's house. Our boy Okarun then uses the opportunity to admire the hot chicks he is currently having breakfast with. Momo breaks off the silence by being the bigger person and apologizing for throwing a washtub on Era earlier. Era doesn't accept this, however, and restarts her baloney talk about them being demons and she being the one to vanquish them or something. She knows for sure that she saw Okarun transform into something unholy last night, and Grandma Seiko is definitely way too young and hot to be anyone's grandma.
Well, that's true in a way.
Seiko naturally agrees with the young, charming lady who just called her hot. However, it soon turns into a full-blown noodle brawl between the two ladies, and a whole lot of bad table manners. After swearing to get stronger and beat Momo, Era leaves and Seiko actually starts rooting for her. She returns moments later to inquire why Okarun bothered saving her back at the battle, so he pulls the cool MC card, saying that he did only what anyone should do in that situation. She then continues yapping about him being a demon, but having a human heart, and promises to free him from Momo's curse, whatever that means. On her way home, Era starts catching feelings for our boy Okarun and starts fantasizing about it like a girl who has read way too many Wattpad novels. Okarun, on the other hand, is in a sort of sticky situation because in order to get his jewels back, it has to be played like a game of baseball, with Turbo Granny is the deranged pitcher, Seiko's the unexpectedly badass batter, and Okarun's poor family jewels. Yeah, they're literally the ball. Hot Granny misses, and the most painful punishment you can give to a man befalls our boy, but it's worth it to get one of his nuts back. That said, they still need to find the other one, but they have no idea where to look. The next day at school, Okarun starts making suspicious excuses about why he can't hang out with Momo at their usual spot, bringing on his loser energy once again. During lunch, her friends are surprised to see her without her nerd bestie, and she complains to them about feeling some way about his new behavior and begins to suspect Era is stealing her man. On her way to get a drink, she spots her Okarun lying on top of Era and freezes in shock as her worst fear comes to life. Here's what actually happened though. Okarun had lied about being busy and was getting some training behind Momo's back because Seiko had told him to build his physique, and he needed to get stronger to be able to protect his dear Momo. Era then came out of nowhere, spilling her usual nonsense about demons and confessing her love, and for some reason wanted to steal an unconsented kiss. Akaran, like the gentleman he is, of course refused this and was confused. Apparently, Era had read in some magazine that you should kiss after confessing your love, and she got the magazine from her single father, so it's definitely not for kids. This soon turns into a hand struggle between a girl who really wants to confess her love and a guy who just wants to protect what's left of his dignity. They then stumble and fall on each other, resulting in the freaky scene now unfolding in front of Momo. There was no way she would have known all this, so naturally, she gets the wrong idea. And Era isn't even trying to convince her otherwise, as she's still waiting for her kiss. Akaran tries to explain, but Momo refuses to hear it because he is sweating buckets, not wearing his jacket, and on top of a hot girl. In their biology class later on, the teacher teaches them about how shrimps have so much punching force, and she can relate deeply to the need to punch something at that moment. She isn't the only one feeling sour though, as Akaran very much regrets lying to her. He had wanted to get stronger in secret so that he could surprise her, but that plan totally backfired. Just then, he notices water on the floor, and suddenly there's no one in his class anymore. He hears a familiar voice scream from outside his class. It's Era, and she's just as confused. They quickly go look for Momo, but can't find her in her class as well, so he tries to wrap his head around what the hell is going on. Momo, on the other hand, is isolated, and after noticing that the water level is rising, she worries about Akaran, then gets angry at herself for thinking about the boy that lied to her even though she obviously has bigger problems. The next moment, she senses something coming towards her, and to her horror, it's a freaking dinosaur. She instinctively hides, but her movements make waves in the water, which the monster can sense. Its movements also make waves in the water, which Momo notices, and it terrifies her. After charging for a bit, the monster releases a sonic energy blast that destroys everything in its path. Thinking there's no way anyone or anything could have survived that blast, it turns to leave, but she did survive it. Only barely though, and now she is very much more worried about Akaran. Confused as they are, Akaran and Era are even more terrified after hearing the sound of the blast. Akaran admits that he had experienced this sort of phenomenon before, when he and Momo were trapped by a thick wall in her house. But not to worry, as everything will go back to normal once they defeat the alien. Not that it would be in any way easy though. Era has a lot to absorb from this, starting from the fact that aliens are real, and might even be worse than evil spirits. Speaking of the devil, one suddenly appears before them and immediately goes in for an attack, but Akaran swiftly transforms and dodges while saving Era. His lovable downer personality returns too, and he tells Era to take cover while he deals with the alien. But just then, some familiar faces pay him an unexpected visit. It's the first aliens he faced before, and they immediately use their power to suppress his abilities, detransforming him in the process. Era tries to help, but they easily knock her out of the way. They had, of course, come back for his genitals, needing it now since he is special because of his abilities. Since he can no longer transform, they begin preparing him for a very unsanitary surgery, but something like hair suddenly stops them. It's Era, and she apparently has the same abilities as Acrobat Silky. With her newfound powers, Arya starts fighting the first alien who thinks he is the reincarnation of Muhammad Ali, while Akaran scrambles for clothes to cover himself up. Her abilities come with a personality just like Akaran's, but hers is a little more sophisticated, making her sound like the Queen of England. She tries to dodge the boxer while she goes for the Seropians, but their ability repels her, and the boxer as well because they couldn't care less about the alien they hired as cheap labor. Akaran, on the other hand, keeps looking to find anything to wear until a stray attack forces him to stop. The boxer and demon Era keep fighting like they're ballet dancing in an elegant courtroom, but she's caught by that same suppressor from the Seropians that forces her to detransform. It then gives the boxer a nice big opening to land a devastating blow to her gut. Akaran immediately jumps in to save the day with nothing but his hands covering his baby maker. He has this bright idea that if he transforms he will magically get clothes, but reality hits hard when transforming does absolutely nothing to help his situation. He then gets suppressed by the Seropian's abilities and gets his head smashed in a couple of times by the boxer, until he can't take it anymore and headbutts the boxer out of his way. The Seropians are surprised by the fact he could break free, but he actually didn't. It was all our girl Momo and her awesome psychic abilities. Her timing couldn't be more perfect. However, she's still angry at Okarun, but that can wait until they're no longer facing mortal danger. Momo gets surprised to see Era using the acrobat Silky's power, and Era mentions Okarun's real name, which distracts her long enough for a nasty hit to take them down. The Seropians use this chance to get the boxer to transform into a much faster form so it can deliver punches faster than the Flash on a caffeine overdose. Momo then regains control of the suppression, and returns both Era and Okarun's powers to level the playing field. The boxer's new form is way too fast for Demon Era, but it's a walk in the park for a speed demon like Okarun. With that, they form a new battle strategy. Combining their strength, they beat the boxer alien, and his employers cut his payment. Just then, the water turns a weird green color, almost like vomit green, and swallows them whole. Soon they're all swimming in a pool of green, and no one feels super glad about it. The walls are all made of water too, and Momo sees a familiar creature which turns out to be her old energy blasting pal, the dinosaur. She gets terrified, but Okarun feels excited for some reason, while Era gets interested in whatever he notices. The Seropians must have hired it too, because they go on about how disappointed they are. But by the time one of them splits in half, having been cut by the energy blast, everyone realizes how much trouble they are truly in. They begin swimming for their lives, but the water blast shoots Era into the water ceiling. It's from our boxer friend, who happens to be a shrimp and can convert his punches into powerful shockwaves. Okarun tries to fight in water, but unfortunately, Turbo Granny's power doesn't come with a free swimming lesson. Era continues chilling in the upper waters, so they try to figure out a way to save her before she drowns. Their only option is for Momo to get close enough to use her power to grab her, but she can't since she's currently running for dear life. Okarun then suggests that he distract it while she does it, but Momo turns down that idea. They soon start arguing, and Momo reminds him that she clearly isn't over the fact that she saw him and Era making out. So Okarun tries to calm her down and explains what happened, but he gets interrupted by a water blast from beneath them, which leaves them in a very touchy position. It's awkward, but it gives Momo a sweet idea though. Using her ability, she pushes Okarun through the water while riding his back like a human surfboard, and they propel fast enough to save Era just in time. After getting the water out of her system, they decide to strip down to their underwear in order to move more easily in the water, and try to ignore the obvious awkwardness of the situation. To the horror of the boxer, he finds another one of his Seropian employers and joins the last one in running from the dinosaur's energy blast. Meanwhile, the girls decide to board the Okarun speedboat and dive into the water, only to be met up close by the dinosaur alien, who greets them with a healthy dose of energy water blast. They discover that it needs to recharge after each blast and decide to use this opportunity to attack, but are shocked to find out it has the boxer alien's arms for close combat. It completes its recharge, and they only narrowly escape its blast this time. With their attack options quickly running out, Momo then has one of her brilliant ideas after she remembers a lesson on shrimps in biology class. As soon as another blast sends them flying, she finds herself face to face with the alien alone. She then taunts it to attack her, and the moment it tries to, she uses her ability to remove all the water around it, and the pressure of its own punch breaks down its body. Turns out, the reason why shrimps don't use their full strength outside water is that the water resistance helps reduce the strain on the body, and doing it on dry land would be self-destructive. It's not done yet though, as it still has its water blaster on full charge, but Era doesn't let it fire and uses her hair to make a path to it. With Momo using her abilities to stabilize the hair, Okarun uses full speed to body slam into the alien, landing a devastating blow. A moment too late and they would have surely drowned, but they beat the boss just in time and have never been more happy to see solid ground. They forget one important thing though, which is that they still have no clothes on and are still in the middle of school. Moments later, a mean lady who looks like she came out of some creeps' fever dream checks to see if they are getting bullied, as that would explain their current state. Before she can discover the truth, her servant comes to call her, so she goes on to punish him for disturbing her, leaving the kids to wallow in the embarrassment of the fact the entire school saw them clothless. Okarun admits that they were only after him this time because of his evil spirit powers. But he's not the only one who has them now, as Era also awakened hers mid-battle. She's also in danger, but she's too dense to even realize it. This entire situation begs the question of why the aliens are after the abilities of evil spirits, and why they just can't take them from the spirits themselves. Okarun immediately goes full nerd mode and starts yapping about aliens and spirits, trying to explain that the aliens are after the ability so they can study how it works, modify their tech with that knowledge, and use it to destroy the spirits around the world in order to invade Earth. Of course, Momo stopped listening the moment he started yapping, and Era is so dense, listening won't help her much, so that whole presentation goes straight into the trash. They have way bigger problems anyway, like the fact that the whole school saw them without clothes. To fix this, Era plans to make up a big lie that she was forced to take off her clothes, and Momo honestly couldn't care less. Her friends quickly barge in and drag her away, assuming that this is all somehow Momo's fault, and she still can't give a horse's behind about what happens. She's more interested in knowing what happened before all this chaos, when she caught Okarun on top of Era. He calmly explains everything to her and explains that he was there in secret because he wanted to train and get stronger. He had hidden it from her because he wanted to surprise her. Despite it being a pathetic attempt to look cool, she gets extremely happy to find out that that's the real reason, and even starts teasing him about it. He turns to leave, but she calls him back, with a lot to say, but not the courage to actually say it. Then her friends burst in and are rightly confused as to what the hell just happened. They each have their own crazy assumptions about what happened, and one of them goes full Detective Sherlock, stating that they were involved in a love triangle, which is surprisingly on point. But then she goes on to say they must have had a freak-off to settle the matter, and that earns her and Momo's other friend back the title of dumbest friends. Meanwhile, in Era's class, all the students are gathering around her in sympathy like flies to rotten food. She then puts on her good girl act and tries to wave off her involvement in the incidents, which works wonders. It doesn't take much time for the dumb people around her to start finding ways to blame Momo for all this, and soon everyone decides to hate on Momo. This pricks at her conscience, so she ends up confessing that she spread lies about Momo and none of it is actually true. She instantly regrets this, of course, because she has just thrown away the popularity she had spent years building. Momo then finds her wallowing in her regret, so she lies to her, saying she explained everything in her favor and totally painted her as the bad guy. However, Momo sees through the act and knows she couldn't bring herself to do it and tries to comfort her, but they get interrupted by an old friend. It's the punching alien, who is now leaking a white substance. They both raise their guards and are ready to fight, but he isn't, as he immediately falls face down, tears in his eyes. He then has a dream of saying goodbye to his son and wakes up in bandages, with hot Granny Seiko ready to beat the hell out of him if he tries anything stupid. They had brought him to Momo's house and patched him up, but still prepared to fight if he wanted the smoke. Luckily, one look at the food they prepared gives him a change of heart, so he swears to never harm them again. They all settle down to have a lively meal, with everyone fighting for food.
I can't help myself. I like good food, okay?
After that, the alien explains that he needed money for his son, who was terribly sick and needed blood transfusions every day, a sickness that had killed his wife. His race is pretty strong, and is normally hired for bodyguard work and other stuff like that. But he's pretty weak, and so he couldn't get any good jobs and had to rely on working for criminals to get paid. Okarun relates to this on a very deep level, and even offers his banana if that would help him in any way.
Stop it. Get some help.
But the alien needs a real solution and not temporary cash. Okarun still really wants to help, and so does Era, even though it's for very stupid reasons. But even the alien knows that he can't find his solution here and is about to give up. Just then, Seiko says that the smell of his blood reminds her of something. Turns out, that white substance that was leaking from him earlier is actually plain old milk. Seiko then promises to give him a whole cow, which is basically a lifetime supply of his blood. Just like that, the gang gets to witness the epic, legendary sight of an alien ship abducting a cow, and it is spectacular. The alien then wishes his friends well and makes a grand exit to save his son. Right then, the kids grovel and beg for new uniforms from Seiko, since they are all broke and she is the only adult who understands why their uniforms no longer exist. She agrees but makes Momo do a funny impression, right as the doorbell rings, leaving her no choice but to keep it up while she goes to open the door. Once there, she meets a cute and familiar face at the door, and Okarun equally gets surprised when he learns that it's her childhood friend and her first crush.
This is where the fun begins.
The smoking hot Chad is named Gigi, and his brain-melting face causes Okarun's insecurities to skyrocket until he shows his quirky side, which is basically a mixture of awful impressions and just weird movements that immediately erases all the affection they had just a moment ago. Apparently, he and Seiko had some sort of arrangement that Momo is definitely not aware of, and now he's going to be living with them, but Momo is not having any of it. Okarun is not a big fan of the idea either, but since they have no say in how Granny Ghostbuster runs her place, they reluctantly accept this new development. Era then returns to her usual low IQ yap session and thinks that Momo is building some sort of evil army, so she rushes home to go prepare hers, whatever that means. Okarun needs to leave as well, but Momo makes a big deal about him not saying a proper goodbye, wanting him to promise to see her tomorrow as it is his turn to say so. Back in the house after her toxic rant, she demands a reason why her childhood crush is now living with them, and as it turns out, Gigi's parents are hospitalized, so he has nowhere else to go. He could have just gone to stay with relatives, but he is buttering up Granny with praises and is slowly turning into her favorite person, forgetting that she has a literal grandkid, so he's definitely not going anywhere anytime soon. While they're doing dishes, Gigi outright apologizes for making fun of her when they were little and admits that he can see ghosts now. Momo immediately asks whether he picked up Okarun's golden jewel by any chance, but he didn't. Right before middle school, he and his family had moved into this house out of town, which was nice at first because it was in the mountains and he loved nature as a kid, but he kept feeling that there was something off about it. He had almost convinced himself that it was nothing until the thing stared him in the eye, proving its existence. After that, his parents gradually got sicker, and they tried hiring spiritual mediums like Seiko, but most of them ended up unaliving themselves. They could only recommend our hot granny as his last hope, and that's why he showed up. He then apologizes for trauma dumping without giving her a heads up, and she accepts his apology. What shocks her is the fact that Seiko is leaving this case to her, as she can't use her powers outside the city. Gigi suddenly being able to see ghosts means that Okarun's jewel isn't far away. She would even give her free uniforms for life as a sweet bonus if she takes on this case. Meanwhile, Gigi's mind is blown when he finds out that Granny Ghostbuster is actually her grandma and not her aunt like he thought. The next day, Gigi transfers to her school and class, and naturally all the girls can't stop gushing over him while the guys struggle to hide their jealousy. Even Momo's friends fall for him, and that just grosses Momo out, especially when he announces that they're living together. He even announces that they're dating, and that ensues a whole lot of drama. Meanwhile, our boy Okarun is busy twisting and turning with jealousy, overthinking about Gigi and his relationship with his Momo. He can't stand the idea of both of them together, so he does what any guy with emotional problems does in this day and age and hits the gym. As he's training, Momo jump scares him and decides to have lunch with him. Gigi also comes along.
Oh no, not this clown again.
And that just makes everything awkward. But when he brings Momo's favorite drink, she's happy with him. And that just sticks a needle into Okarun's already injured heart. He turns to walk away, but is stopped by a running biology class dummy that chases him all the way back to Momo and Gigi. Momo then spots a golden jewel on the mannequin and tries to follow it. But Gigi won't let her, so she uses her psychic hand, and the dummy ends up pulling them both with it, with Okarun desperately trying to catch up. This time, Okarun decides to remove his shoes and socks and transforms before catching up and grabbing them. Gigi thinks he's another monster, but Momo explains it to him. Using their wit, they finally catch the dummy, but he disassembles himself and reassembles to get out of their hold and just keeps running. They eventually lose track of him. Then Momo punches something in her hand and he screams out, revealing his location. He is at the junkyard for some reason, on the floor and in pain. Turns out Momo had grabbed his heart when he disassembled, and after getting to the junkyard, they ask for the golden jewel that belongs to Okarun. However, they get thrown into another sob story as they learn that the reason he's there is to meet with his lover, a female biology class dummy who had been thrown away because she was no longer useful. To make matters worse, their manufacturing date is too far apart, which means they can never be together, but the guy refuses to hear any of that. Despite their love story being so freaky, Okarun relates to it on a deep level because it opens his eyes to how he feels about Momo. Soon after this, the kids grovel and beg Seiko to take in the female dummy while the male one heads back to his job at the school. As the biological model he is, he would visit his love at night. First off, she inquires about the other jewel. Turns out the jewel was no jewel, just a Christmas decoration. After some thinking, she agrees, as long as they don't disturb the neighbors, and tells Momo to set the table for dinner. Gigi volunteers to help her, and they look so cute together, making our boy Okarun boil with jealousy. Remembering the story of the dummies, he decides to take a stand and beat Gigi at his own game. He then rushes over to help with the table and starts doing weird impressions like Gigi. Soon it becomes a competition of the weirdest, and Momo is not having it. Seiko then reminds Momo to pack enough clothes for her trip to Gigi's house, and completely shatters what's left of Okarun's heart, as he never thought she would be sleeping over. So he insists on going too, which is fine by her. At school, some dumb NPCs decide to sneak in at night for the usual low IQ activities. Then they hear some footsteps coming towards them. The sight of the dummy running scares the living crap out of them. The dummy doesn't care though, for he has his lover to meet, so he runs through everything, even boards a train, which is quite uncomfortable for people riding with him. But his trip is interrupted when a bus runs into him, shattering him into pieces. Momo ends up having to wait all night with the female dummy waiting for the male, but she promises not to leave her side until he arrives. The male one only shows up in the morning when she's already off in dreamland. Momo then wakes up to the gross sight of them making out and gets heartbroken when she hears that he plans on coming every night. Meanwhile, Gigi develops serious insomnia as he keeps seeing that thing all night. On their bus ride to Gigi's house, they play a card game and Okarun loses terribly to no one's surprise. Gigi then brings snacks and starts getting even closer to Momo, causing boy Okarun to get extremely jealous. He decides to focus on getting his jewel back, but that doesn't go very well because right at the peak of his locked-in state, Momo calls him, and he blurts out his dream to find his nuts again. He then decides to fight for Momo's attention with his nerdy alien facts, but later ends up bonding with Gigi instead, which Loki pisses him off, because he hates the fact that his rival is such a likable person. They finally arrive and see that the town is packed full of hot springs because there's a non-active volcano nearby that his dad is studying, which is why they moved there in the first place. The locals are also weird, staring creepily, but no one takes notice of that as they have to climb a crippling fleet of stairs, which is only fun for Gigi but ends up being a life-threatening marathon for Momo and Okarun. Upon getting to his house, Momo struggles to sense anything wrong with it, even though past mediums declared it evil before they even stepped in. They all step in, and for a second Okarun notices eyes on them, but it's the weird people of the town. She doesn't see anything wrong with the house, and the only thing spooky is when she turns on the TV, but it looks to Okarun like it turned on by itself. Okarun then gives Gigi a suspicious look, and he swears he didn't make it all up, which Momo easily believes. Spirits can hide their aura, just like Turbo Granny did inside Okarun that one time, but they'll have to come out eventually. Till then, all they can do is chill and wait for nighttime, so Gigi glazes and massages her, because he ain't paying her for all this knowledge. After he eventually goes to get her a drink, she calls Okarun to relax and sit with her. With nothing else to do, Momo goes to hit the hot springs alone, despite Okarun's disapproval. Left alone, the two boys decide to go play soccer, and as usual Okarun struggles with the basic moves, so Gigi coaches him. He secretly thanks his stars that Momo isn't there to see how pathetic he is, and decides to surprise her by working until he becomes the new Lemine Yamel. The next moment, Gigi suddenly asks if he is in love with Momo. Meanwhile, Momo relaxes alone in the hot spring, her intention being to give the boys some bonding time. She knows that Okarun doesn't have any male friends, and hopes they can be that for each other without her in the way. However, while thinking about what Okurun is probably doing with Gigi, she fails to realize that there is something watching her. By then, Okurun's brain has just clocked the question Gigi asked, so he stammers to find the right words. Gigi then admits that he likes her, and that gives him enough courage to also claim his love for her, before their friendly football match turns into a battle for who likes Momo more. While arguing about who knows her more, Gigi pulls out the childhood friend card, which is basically just cheating. But our boy has gone deeper. He has actually locked lips with Momo once before, but is way too shy to say it, so he keeps it to himself to let Gigi think that being stuck in the friend zone all his life makes him better. At the hot springs, Momo finally notices something weird about the place, but as she's about to leave, 4 creepy men walk in. Back to our boys, Gigi decides to be the bigger man and stop all these childish games by offering a friendly shake. But it's only a trap to get Okurun to surrender. Okurun then notices something weird as well because his house looks bigger on the outside than inside. After noticing a strange wall, they decide to check it out and deduce that there's a room back there. This raises a lot of questions, which they can only get answers to once they find out what's behind that wall, so Gigi grabs a mallet and completely disregards the fact that his house is actually a rental. Meanwhile, Momo is in serious trouble with the creepy men, so she begins to wonder if she can take the 4 of them with her mental abilities. Right then, one of them jumps and pulls her down underwater. Meanwhile, the boys have just found a whole room filled with talismans oozing a lot of negative energy. Thanks for sticking around until the end, you absolute legend. We want to know, is Grandma Seiko a little too hot to be a grandmother? What do you think? Let us know in the comment section. Like, subscribe, and click on the screen to watch some of our other exciting videos. Until next time, stay awesome, stay Anageek.